I was sick, I wouldn't know I was sick. Not only did I have cancer, I had an advanced case of cancer. One of the things I learned while in Vietnam, it isn't over till it's over. You never stop. You never quit fighting. You never give up. If you give in to your fear alone will kill you.
Welcome to The Incurables. I'm Don Wildman. Some people live their lives on the edge, surrounded by danger. As a young man, Charlie Rice fought for his country in the Vietnam War. Later, he worked as a firefighter in California. As Charlie approached retirement, his family hoped that his dangerous days would soon be over. Unfortunately, life doesn't always work out the way we hope. His next battle was with cancer, and it would drag him closer to death than anything he had yet experienced.
Fighting cancer boils down to having the knowledge to be proactive. It's such a feared illness that people won't even say the word out loud. If I would relate it to my experiences in Vietnam, initially going over there, you didn't know that much personally about the enemy, and you gave him superhuman qualities. And then you began to learn that he had limitations, that he had fears, that there were things that would harm him. When you realize that it's not something foreign that jumped on you, it's something that occurred in your own body, that's your own cells, that puts you on this trail of why did they do that? What can I do to help correct it? And I think when you look at combat, it's the same thing. You have to set aside your fear and put your thinking mind in charge.
Charlie Rice was born into a military family. He spent his childhood moving from base to base. In 1965, he was drafted into the Vietnam War and learned to fly helicopters. Soon he was flying regularly behind enemy lines.
I was what they termed a magnet ass because every time I went out, something exciting usually happened. In the course of a year, I was down 9 times, 6 times to hostile fire and 3 times to mechanical failures.
After serving his tour of duty, Charlie landed a job in Sunnyvale, California.
One of the things that you find, even the military background, especially Vietnam, became an adrenaline junkie. When I got out, I couldn't imagine a quiet job someplace. Once I got into firefighting, I absolutely loved it. It was very satisfying. I felt like I was giving something back, that making my life useful, and yet it was very self-satisfying in that I still had that adrenaline push, but it's calculated risk.
Charlie was working for the fire department when he met his match, a public safety officer named Shelley. They fell in love and eventually got married.
He's the most wonderful guy in the world. You couldn't help but fall in love with him. He's very caring about people. He can fix anything. He's always fixing things. He's always working on things. He's never idle. He's very compassionate. He's very loving. And I think what most people would say about him is he's really funny.
Well, I was preparing to retire from the fire department in December of 2001. Prior to retiring, I decided that I would have an Ameriscan. This was a full-body scan that had been responsible for a couple of medical saves or condition exposures on people in the department. I went in, I had this full-body scan, and they detected slightly enlarged lymph nodes.
When we found out that he had these enlarged lymph nodes, I don't know that I was really worried. It was just kind of really strange.
I went to an internist, and he couldn't pin down why I should have that. He suggested that I have a electrocardiogram, a stress electrocardiogram, and I requested a PSA test.
Doctors look for high PSA levels to detect prostate cancer. PSA, which stands for prostate-specific antigen, is released in small amounts by healthy prostates. But prostates with cancer release high levels of PSA, and Charlie's PSA was catastrophically high. Patients with levels higher than 4 nanograms per milliliter are considered at risk for prostate cancer.
So the next morning when we stopped at Kaiser and found out what it was, and it was 62.5, it was like, whoa.
So Charlie reluctantly went in for the biopsy. There's really only one way to collect tissue samples from the prostate gland, and it's not pleasant. The procedure was excruciating, even for a tough war veteran like Charlie.
The biopsy process was not a very pleasant one for me. They didn't provide you with any form of anesthesia. The doctor gave me the basic instruction that you'll hear a series of clicks, and each time you hear a click during this rectal procedure, I'll be taking a sample. He neglected to tell you there'd be a significant amount of pain with each one of those clicks.
Every single sample cut from Charlie's prostate tested positive for cancer.
It's like somebody dropped a bomb in my lap. It was devastating to us when we realized that not only did I have cancer, I had an advanced case of cancer, and the prognosis for survival is not good.
Charlie was given a death sentence. Hormonal treatment might give him a little more time, but according to doctors, he didn't have a chance. The cancer had already taken over his lymphatic system. The first procedure had left him reeling.
The doctor told him, we can't do radiation. There is really no chemotherapy for it.
I was almost in shock, not mental shock, physical shock from the procedure itself. And when I proceeded out to the waiting room, I started to get lightheaded and I had to sit down.
Charlie was having a hard time staying conscious.
My urologist returned from lunch, said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm having trouble here. I'm shocky, and I get up and I get lightheaded. I can't get out to my car." And he kind of walked over, got an ammonia inhaler, cracked it, put it right under my nose, and said, "Okay, you're going to be okay," and walked away. So Shelley and I walked away feeling, well, it's time for us to get on the stick. We have to do something, and we're the ones who are going to have to do it.
You see people dying at work all the time, and you're with people that die, but they're people you don't know. And this is the love of your life.
Shelley had been exposed in her early college career to the macrobiotic diet, which was a diet that was really directed at healing. And she had put a book away and just filed away in the back of her head, if I ever know somebody who has cancer, I'm going to recommend this to them.
So I go into the den and I come back out and I said, I found a book, The Macrobiotic Approach to Cancer. And I opened it up and there was a pink bookmarker on the page for metastatic prostate cancer. It was kind of like, wow, maybe that's a sign that this is the direction we're supposed to go.
The medical people that I dealt with to that point left me a little disappointed. The entire procedure was, here's what you do, we tell you what to do. If you don't do it, you're going to die, so don't be dumb. There appeared to be no room for discussion, and when I asked about the macrobiotic diet, the response was, whatever. We stopped at our favorite pizza place. We had a slice of pizza and a beer, and then went macrobiotic afterwards.
Pizza and beer are definitely not part of the macrobiotic diet, but neither are foods such as cheese, red meat, or eggs. They all had to go. So did white flour and sugar. Charlie and Shelley hoped that the sacrifice would pay off, but they needed more than just their book to stay on track.
We started by going to a 5-day course that was an introductory course to it in Massachusetts. And expanding from that, we began to change the foods we ate and changed a lot of our lifestyle. We sat with a counselor named John Kozinski, who remains my primary counselor today, and he began to prescribe the macrobiotic path for that type of cancer to me.
Charlie went from eating pizza, steaks, drinking martinis, wine.
Giving up wine and alcohol, no problem. Giving up baked goods and sweets, misery.
The food, I actually liked it. It was different. I liked basic food. It was good. It's a lot of vegetables and broccoli, cruciferous vegetables. It was good.
And the remarkable thing on this diet is that I went from being a 220-pound firefighter down to my high school weight of 165 pounds, and never felt better in my life.
While at the Kushi Institute, Charlie discovered shiatsu massage. It energized him so much that he hired a masseuse when he returned to California.
When he first came, his energy was very good, but when I got him down on the mat, I knew there was illness in the body. I could feel it. But we started working a couple times a week, and he responded beautifully. He always felt so much more energized after the treatments.
Like other treatments from the Far East, shiatsu massage addresses energy flows inside the body. It works to correct imbalanced energy that stops healing.
There are pressure points in areas that dramatically affect the flow of energy in your body, and that flow of energy is directly related to your health.
I realized that he had the ability to heal because he was a happy guy, completely at ease, full of love for life, and that's 3/4 of the battle.
This whole exploration, as it were, of alternate means has been a real change for me. I was a very pragmatic person, very much to believe in strictly in institutions and established things. If you'd have told me 10 years ago that I would even be looking at things like this, let alone considering their validity, I'd have told you were nuts.
For the next 2 years, Charlie and Shelley would gauge the effectiveness of their macrobiotic transformation by watching his PSA levels. Charlie's average PSA dropped at a constant rate, but was still in a range that made doctors nervous.
Finally, we started a period that my PSA continued to creep up in slow increments, but it continued to creep up.
I think it was in June of 2005. He had a PSA and it was, I think it was 114, and we said, uh-oh, this is not good.
We decided we would adhere to the diet intensively, one-on-one with a counselor.
Eating all organic, all macrobiotic, no television, no anything, just focusing. And
we did get the PSA to start coming down, and it dropped to 102 from 114. We went back in for another bone scan. We hadn't had one for a while. And they indicated that there was possibly involvement in the bone adjacent to the prostate. And that's when we thought, well, we've really got to do something else. The diet has really helped us. We weren't going to not continue with the diet, but we're going to take another tool out of the box. And my shiatsu therapist here in town recommended Dr. Isaac Elias.
Charlie and Shelley searched far and wide for possible approaches to take in this fight against an aggressive cancer. No one suspected that injuries sustained in Vietnam might actually have something to do with the disease.
Charlie is a remarkable person. I don't know if he told you, he was a pilot in Vietnam. He was shot 8 times in 1 year. He was telling me the story. They would give him 2 days to heal before the next mission. Sometimes his arm was so injured, they would tie the arm so it doesn't move from the pain. And as part of being shut down, he got hurt with bullets, which have a high lead content. But the first thing when I heard his story was lead.
He was the first person who looked at me and looked at what was going on with me and immediately gave me a wide range of tests, that some of which I'd never been given. He found that my lead content in my body was 9 times normal.
It was the highest lead I've ever seen in my life.
Which surprised us and actually surprised Dr. Elias. But we were in good hands because Dr. Elias is one of the leading doctors, I would say, in the nation for ridding the body of toxins from heavy metals.
We know lead can contribute to cancers and also affect the quality of the bone marrow and the bones. And that's a good explanation why his cancer spreads so quickly.
And that's very significant in my prostate cancer because in trying to deal with it with diet, I can't process selenium correctly, I can't process vitamin D correctly. There's any number of things that are handicapped in your own healing system.
If we did not address the toxic lead levels, he would not respond to the hormonal therapy.
Dr. Elias developed his own method of removing heavy metals from the human body. It was based on studies from the Chernobyl disaster. He gave Charlie an organic ligand, which is a molecule that binds to metals. The ligands behave like small metal-collecting magnets as they pass through the GI tract. He used other treatments as well.
The pectosol chelation complex is a combination of two ingredients. One is pectosol modified citrus pectin, and the other is called alginate, which is low molecular weight alginates. Pectin is a long molecule of sugar that is present at the peel of the citrus fruit. When it's modified very specifically to a shorter size, it gets absorbed into the bloodstream and it binds to heavy metals. But one of the problems is that when you excrete heavy metals, they get reabsorbed in the gut, and then you get them back into the body. So the second component that I integrated is the alginates, which come from seaweed. And this molecule binds very well to heavy metals, and therefore I'm stopping this vicious loop. And we showed it just, for example, in Charlie's case, the chelating agents were just for the bloodstream, but when we used calcium EDTA to show how much lead is left in the tissue, it was already dramatically lower.
Within just a few months, a hair sample showed that Charlie's lead content had dropped almost to zero.
He recommended that I begin the first of the conventional treatments, that is, take Casodex, which is a treatment, a hormonal blocker for the amounts of testosterone that are produced in your adrenal system.
When Charlie came to see me, he already seen other doctors, he was a Kaiser patient, and they all offered for him Lupron and Casodex as combined hormonal therapy, and he refused to do it. He was resistant to do it.
He explained to me why he felt now it was important, and that was because his feeling that we have to get the PSA zeroed out so that we can then begin to effectively attempt to rid your body of cancer and build your immune system.
And it was the right thing for him. He would have been in real trouble without it. He wouldn't be alive without it. But if he did just combine hormonal therapy, he would also be in real trouble. So while we found other components and created a very holistic program for him, we allowed it to integrate in a good way.
My PSA at that point was 102. In 3 weeks, it dropped to 38 on the Casodex alone. And so I went back to Dr. Elias very happy. And he said, this is good, but he says it's not fast enough. We have to get it down. He says, I want you to take a Lupron shot.
What it just does is you have no testosterone, you have no sex drive. Nothing works in that area because you have no testosterone.
In a very short period of time, my PSA had dropped into the 6 range.
Dr. Elias put Charlie on an IV filled with vitamins. It's been well documented that high doses of vitamin C can actually kill cancer.
Because of what we have done, we were able to get him to respond very well to combined hormonal therapy, when now his PSA is under the 0.04 level.
My PSA is down to where Kaiser does not normally give you a PSA test. You have to go to ultrasensitive. They call it 0.0, and my treatment's successful as far as they're concerned. Isaac would like to see it 0.00, and that's where we're working. Dr. Elias really made me profoundly feel that I'm on the road. And we have decided we won't chase numbers. We focused outward. We're focusing on our life and the quality of life, and that's what we're doing.
The right treatment wasn't the only thing that Charlie Rice needed to beat cancer. He also needed support. Cancer is one journey that no one should make alone.
Probably the mainstay in this whole experience with cancer has been my wife, Shelley. We've been married for 14 years now, and she's been with this problem from the beginning. She has been my researcher. She has been a driving force in seeking alternative methods.
It was a definite lifestyle change for us. But I feel, even though macrobiotics didn't cure Charlie, it led us on the path to where we are. It all happens for a reason.
It's like this tremendous opportunity has opened up before me.
He's a trooper. He's always positive. I'm very fortunate to have such a great guy that's totally positive. I can't say that he really has down days, and luckily we kind of just go together because I usually don't have down days either. We're just focused and we just live our lives.
I love life. I like people. I very much respect people. I enjoy getting to know people as individuals, and there's value in everyone. I feel that being alive and being on this earth is a good place to be. When you get done, you should slide in battered, beat up, and sit there and say, it was a hell of a ride.
Charlie Rice rumbled through life in search of wild rides. There wasn't a situation he couldn't handle. But for a time, it looked like cancer might have gotten the best of him. His doctors certainly thought so. But a scrapper like Charlie, along with his devoted wife, Shelley, wasn't going down without a fight. A fight they're now winning.